Cannon was just talking about breaking this kind of news to children, and I'm going to discuss this now with psychologist Emma Kenny. Emma, thank you very much indeed for joining us. So we know that Kate said that the most important thing to her and to William was to be able to break this news to the children, as she said, in an appropriate way that would reassure them, certainly not frighten them. And many people think that this announcement that she's made so courageously this evening has coincided with the start of the school holidays so that they can be kept close. You know, they don't have to go into school every morning and run the gauntlet, just having heard this news about their mother. So talk to me about what many people in many households all over the country will have had to do, which is breaking the news of a cancer diagnosis to young children.
I think that any parent just knows that fear that they feel with the idea that firstly, they're sick, and that secondly, their children are going to have to come to terms with that. So there's a relatable experience across the country right now. And then it's about making your children feel realistically reassured. And again, that's a big job when you're already dealing with the slings and arrows of being ill yourself. I think that they have, as a family, had to endure an enormous amount of trauma in the past few weeks because of speculation, let alone dealing with the stress coping of the disease. So right now, I imagine the school holidays are going to give them a breathing space, a time to pause. I think it's really sad that they've had to do such a public announcement on the level of explaining to the rest of us what is a very personal matter. I think you're absolutely right, Vanessa, in your views about the treachery around. It's awful what they're enduring as a family. Where the children are concerned, I think what's amazing is she's very much like Diana. She has that very embracing, compassionate, empathic way of being a parent. She's supported not just by her husband, but by the royal household and by millions of people. So arguably right now, I think they'll just need a little bit of space and time. They'll have the best experts available to them. But for Kate, I think the trauma that she's probably endured, not just on an illness level, but on an environmental level, community level, has been enormous. And that is something that I think everybody needs to take a step back from and say, just because we've got this information now, that doesn't excuse how it's been in the past few weeks. Ultimately, you shouldn't have to have a diagnosis of cancer to actually be understood. For whatever reason, she took a pause, and we need to learn that when people take those pauses, there is usually a very good reason, and we are not necessarily allowed to have the information until they're ready.
And I want to ask you about the sorts of words, the sorts of phrases, the kinds of approaches that are appropriate for a little boy of 10, a little girl of 8, and a little boy of 5, you know, to try to convey this diagnosis when you're the mother, when you're the father of these young children, primary school age children.
I think,
how do you do it? What are the ways in which it's best, if you possibly can, to do it?
I think one of the most important things is for you to be ready. Then it's about age-appropriate language, but also it's about reassurance. It sounds like in this case, for example, they feel quite reassured that she's going to be okay. And because children trust you as an adult, they trust you as a parent. If you're saying it's going to be okay, there are going to be some bumps in the roads, mummy might not look well or might not feel well at times, but we'll be okay. Ultimately, we trust our mentors, we trust our primary caregivers. So I think that's going to be the start of this experience. And then for people at home who are actually dealing with it themselves, there are ultimate moments where it's not going to be okay. But again, it's about making sure the support is around you, that the people around the kids are making sure that they're getting a lot of hugs, a lot of reassurance, a lot of love. And also, no matter what outcomes are ahead of them, there is a supported fabric around them that makes a child feel ultimately like no matter what happens, there are people there who are going to go with them through this journey. And I think at that moment, that's all you can do, because no one wants this kind of experience. No one wants this diagnosis. There are mothers and fathers around the country right now dealing with it. But ultimately, the children will always be the priority, even when you're the one dealing with the illness. And no one is more likely to offer that kind of circumstance than Kate, because it's within her nature to be that kind of loving mother.
Emma Kenny, thank you very much indeed.